Hello, everyone. Welcome to Brivia's November 2023 webinar, The True Power of Recognition, What Leaders Need to Know Now. My name is Steve Smith, and I'm Brivia's Vice President of Market Development. We are so excited to have you join us here today to learn how to improve your leadership by gaining a better understanding of the power of recognition. At Brivia, we make work better, and we do that by offering training, coaching, and solutions that help improve an organization's leadership, culture, and engagement. We also seek to add value by doing a lot of things on LinkedIn. We offer newsletters and, of course, this monthly webinar. Today's webinar, we're going to be here for about 45 minutes where Stephen de Groot and I are going to have a conversation about the importance of recognition. We're also going to have time for two of you to come off mute and go through an exercise with Steve near the end of our time together. So if that's something you would like to do, please send me a direct message or send us something in the Q&A, and we'd love to have you join us for that near the end of the webinar. Also, this webinar will be posted to our YouTube channel, and our valuable handout as well as the link to this recording will be sent to you tomorrow. We encourage a lot of interactions during our webinars. So I'm going to give you a chance to do that right now. Why don't you, in the chat, let us know where you're joining us from today. I am joining from snowy Airdrie, Alberta. We had another big dump of snow last night, but I think warmer weather is on the way, so we're excited about that. And while you're doing that in the chat, letting us know where you're joining us from, I'd like to bring on Stephen de Groot. Steve is Brivia's president and co-founder, and excited to hear what you have to say to us today, Steve.
Hey, Steve. Awesome. I'm seeing people joining from different places today. Fill up the chat. Great to be here. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Steve, thanks for helping out with this. Thanks, everybody. I'm looking forward to this, something we talk about all the time, something that's super powerful, something that's minimized, something that's misunderstood. So I'm really looking forward to getting to this webinar today.
Awesome. Well, Steve, you're excited about that. What else are you excited about? What else do you have to tell us about?
Well, I'm always excited to know that people have taken time to join us, right? People have actually taken time out of their day, out of their lives to join us for this webinar. So I'm always excited about that. And, I'm excited to get to this topic because, one of the things I like to do and we like to do at Brivia is make really powerful things simple. So I can't wait to get to that today. And I can't wait to see all the interaction in the chat. What are you excited about, Steve? What are you really excited about?
Well, Steve, this is our 11th webinar of the year. And did you know we've had over 800 people join us on our webinar so far this year? So I know there's a lot of people that are joining us multiple times, and probably a lot of you that are joining us for the first time as well. We just want to welcome you here and thank you for your time today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. All right, are we ready to rock and roll, Steve? Oh, I'm also excited about the book. I'm going to talk a little bit about that during the, speaking of minimizing things, I often minimize some of the things that I'm working on, but yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that in the book. So let's get ready to rock and roll. Thanks for being here, everybody. I want to do a simple scaling question. I want to see in the chat how important, so with a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not important at all to 10 being super important, I want to ask you, for those that have showed up, how important is recognition for you at work? So not for everybody else, but from your perspective, how important is recognition for you? And I see a 10 already, I see a 7, okay, a 9, an 8. All right, it varies, right, in terms of our own perspectives. So I want to ask you, and again, it's from your perspective, because sometimes it's different when we say, I believe it's important for other people. I'm not sure it's important for me at work. I'm not sure about that, right? Wide variety based on the individual. So yes, I'm seeing in the chat that people are saying that it depends, the situation, it depends. So I want you to hold on. Like always, we're going to come back to the scaling questions, right? So we've got them loaded. I want to get into a story to kind of set the tone. And I call it the quickest win. And this is a true story. This is a story about my experience. This was about 10 years ago. I do a lot of work. Many of you know, we got leadership and a lot of culture development, organizational development stuff. But a lot of people don't know that I've done a lot of other work. And I was on my way. I was asked to go to a city to see a CEO who was struggling with resistance and opposition a little bit from his executives. So I was getting on a flight to go from one city to another. On the plane, my experience was I sat with a brand new father and mother, so a very young couple, this baby was so small, it was almost like, should she even be flying, right? And I sat beside the father in the middle aisle, and we talked a little bit. And during our conversation, he found out not only was I dressed in a suit and doing executive stuff, but I used to be a family therapist. I used to work in child welfare. I used to do a lot of work with parents and teens for almost 15 years. And he thought that was pretty interesting. We talked a little bit about family and stuff like that. And just before we landed, just before we hit the ground, he kind of tugged on my suit jacket on the sleeve, and he said, "Can I ask you just one more question?" He said, "If you could give me one piece of advice for me and my wife, for our daughter, like, so that we can be the best for her, so that she can grow and that her life can be better." And I didn't even think about it. I said, it's easy. Never let her forget. Never let her guess how important she is to you, ever. And you're going to be okay. And I remember him letting out this big sigh of relief, like, oh, right? And he said, "I can do that." So flash forward, I land in the city. I am on my way. I jump into a cab. Back then, I don't think we had Uber. I jump into a cab. I go to see the CEO of the organization I was working with. And we were talking, and he said, I'm really worried. I wonder if my people know how much I think about them, and how much I think about them, worry about them, how much I value their efforts." And I just didn't even didn't even blink and said, "Well, why don't you share it with them?" Right? It was a company of about 1,000 people, and in that moment, he gave me all of the excuses, all the reasons I can't do it because of optics. I can't do it because of blowback. I can't because of so many people. People have blah, 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 blah. By the time I just said to him, like, by the time you finished explaining why you couldn't do it, you could do it. I encouraged him to share to send an email to all 1,000 people. And he did it. And it was really simple. It was a very simple email. It was a genuine hello. It was like a thank you. It was, I see you, I acknowledge your efforts, emphasize valuing all of the employees and the teams working well together. It was a heartfelt thank you, right, about the company's success. And it was an endearing personal sign off. And what was interesting is he minimized it. We got through it, did our work that day. And I was visiting satellite offices weeks later. And could you guess what the talk around these different offices was? No, more than 2 weeks later? The CEO that came in, the email that came in from the CEO. One woman told me, "I've been here 20 years, 5 different CEOs, and that's never happened." And while I was excited, I was also sad, because recognition can be powerful, very powerful. So the message here is, never let them guess how important they are to you.
Yeah, Steve, those are powerful stories. And I really enjoyed those. Like, what makes it so powerful? You just touched on it a bit. Can you get us a little bit more there? What makes recognition so powerful?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons. People know it's a great question, Steve. Right? So great. I think I was prepared with a slide there. I just saw the future. This is one of those things we often know how important it is. There's tons of different reasons, but I want to share what I believe to be maybe the most powerful reason why recognition is important, and why recognizing the people we care about, and more importantly, the people we are responsible for, receive the recognition that we have to give. And I want to reference one of my good friends and esteemed colleagues, Dr. Jean Clinton. Some of you I know work. She's a really good friend of mine. She's on one of my core councils. We do work together. Right. She talks a lot about our brains being social organs, right? Not just at the beginning, early years, but we're wired to connect as humans, and it's essential from the beginning throughout our whole lives, right? And most people wouldn't argue with that. And as a matter of fact, Steve, this is so important. I think what I want to do is I want to share a small snippet of the new book. So just a section of the small book. I'm just going to take a moment and read it, because I don't think I can remember it as well. So here we go. This is from the book, Getting to Better, coming out in April. It combines a lot of the neuroscience work. Here we go. Something incredible happens to all of us within the first few days of coming into the world. Something very special and extraordinary, and it occurs between newborns and our adult caregivers. It may be very well the moment we experience the sense of comfort and safety for the very first time. It may be the moment that we felt safe for the first time ever. This miraculous thing is among the first known interactions, and possibly the first sign of a relational connection and communication between a newborn and an adult. It's called serve return. And it's the very thing that activates and strengthens our brains and our bodies to grow. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this thing called serve return. when we're born, there's this thing that happens between when adults respond to caregivers respond with gestures, with touch, with sound, in a way that connects with the gesture of the baby. It's called serve return, and it actually is the brain. It stimulates the brain's architecture. Right. This is what's really cool about this thing, that in that moment that we're seeing, in that moment that there's a responsive connection, it supports the development and communication of social and emotional skills. So this is really cool. You can try this out. In the first 24 hours that a child is born, you can actually, if the child is able to see, then you're able to look at the child, you're able to make small faces, small gestures, moving your tongue, making little O's with your face, and the baby is able to mimic that. Now, this is wild. This is well before what we know about mirror neurons, right? So what's happening? How could this be possible? No conscious thought. Well, it's a neurobiological mechanism. It's the baby's brain connecting with the adult brain. It's a form of communication. But see, more importantly, it's a form of connection for protection. It's a form of connection and protection because this interaction provides a newborn with two very important messages for the very first time. The messages are, I see you. You're safe here. And being safe, why is it important? Why is being safe is our number one goal as humans, right? Is to be safe, to survive. There's so much evidence about this type of relational serve return responsiveness, and without it, there's even medical research that shows without it, we fail to thrive, right? So we need it at the beginning of our lives, and this responsive serve return interaction builds and reinforces our brains and our capacity for learning, adaptation, growth, and more importantly, healthy and fulfilling relationships, right? So it's powerful, Steve. So that's a pretty big reason why I think recognition is powerful. I'm going to continue that to just say that serve return interactions are important for elevating human potential, performance, and individual and collective resilience. And I don't think there is a bigger reason for why we should be focusing more on the importance of recognition and moving to doing it more. And we'll talk about why we should, how we could, and why we don't in just a minute, right?
Oh, that's great, Steve. So that's let me know if you have anything else you want to share on serve return. How does that progress in someone's life? Any thoughts on that, or do you want to get into kind of the 3 simple steps to take?
Yeah, no, I think it's important. I think that's so great, Stephen. I'd love to hear people put it in the chat. I'd love to, the chat's been quiet for a bit, so throw in what you think. Do you know this? Is this true? Last time in the chat, we had great conversations going back and forth. So don't hesitate. You're gonna have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments, but don't hesitate to share what you're thinking in the chat. So yeah, I think here's the thing, Steve. It's such a great question. We're always serving as humans from the day that we're born. Our brains are longing for connection. We're longing, and so are our hearts, right? Whether we know it or not, we're always serving. And here's the thing, recognition is a powerful form of return. It signals to the brain, right? I see you, you're safe here in its various forms. Recognition conveys messages, not only I see you, I hear you, you're valuable. What you're doing is valuable, right? You're valued, and here's the biggest one. Here comes 2 big ones. You matter, and you're safe here. And this is the thing. It's important for every single one of us to be seen, but it's more important for us to feel seen, right? So these responsive interactions are good for all of us. And I think, when someone says, well, I don't think, we often minimize appreciation. We often minimize recognition. One of my favorite, quotes is from Mother Teresa many years ago. There's more hunger for love and appreciation in the world than there is for bread, right? So we're starving for it, I think is the message. I think we're starving. And I think with the loneliness crisis right now, the connection crisis, Steve, this topic is absolutely essential, right?
Yeah. Well, thanks for going into that, Steve. That helps quite a bit there. Folks, I just wanted to let you know a couple things. Steve mentioned, let us know in the chat how you're feeling. I see a few or 1 new chat in there, but if you have any things or you can send us a Q&A. Also, I don't know if I was clear enough in the beginning, but if one of you or a couple of you want to come off mute at the end of the webinar, we'd love to have you come off mute. and Steve will run through an exercise with you
Yeah.
to show you how to make this simple, right? Steve,
Yeah,
you're so
and
good at
yeah,
that.
and I know we're in the profound part. So just to let people know, the interview is going to be around what we call your recognition currency. And we did a couple yesterday, and they're really cool actually. So if you want to have some fun and get involved here, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Steve's going to bring you on. Send him a message and let him know you want to do it. We're going to pick 2 people today to do this.
Okay.
So, yeah. Awesome.
Great. Well, Steve, let's get into a little more meat here. Maybe share with us the 3 of the ways people can recognize.
Yeah, awesome. So what we like to do at Brivia is make the profound simple, right? So we like to make it simple, practical, and actionable. And that's one of our favorite things to do at Brivia. And I also believe it's one of the reasons why, and we see some of our friends and clients here and our partners, one of the reasons we believe, our work to be very effective, because our support and services, our tools all have this deep rooted model that we use around the science of human potential and performance. So let's get into the simple stuff. Let's get into stuff that you can do immediately, even while you're on the webinar. The first one is acknowledge, right? Acknowledge. That's the first thing we're gonna talk about. You can acknowledgement. The reason why we start with acknowledgement, we're going to share 3 A's, okay? And you know this to be true. This is what's wild about this. But what we're going to try to supplant a little bit, I don't know where that word came. I haven't used that word for a while, right? Is that acknowledgement is just about recognizing and confirming that someone is valid and that they exist, right? I love that. Have a look at the chat. There's some great things in the chat. Wow, this is awesome, right? This is the simplest of the 3 A's. We call them, this is the best triple A, right? Not triple A personality, but triple A recognition. And it starts with acknowledgement. It's the easiest one to do. It's about making eye contact, raising your eyebrows, tipping your hat, saying hi, hello, hey there, right? I mean, one of the saddest things for me is seeing so many people in restaurants on their phones, not even looking at each other, people in businesses, in the hallways, passing each other without even making eye contact, right? And remember, the brain is on all the time, signaling, serving, 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 stating it's nice to see you. Even if you're in a rush, let somebody know that you see them, right? And for those other Canadians that are here, I know we have some Americans that are joined us today. We like to say good day, eh? There's many things that you already know to be true. You can do them yourselves. So let's start with acknowledge. Let's take it a step further. Let's take it just a little bit step further. What about admire, admiration, to like or favor something or someone? This is about going beyond acknowledgement, right? To stating that you admire something, approving or a favorable smile, right? A nod, or saying, I like what you did. I really appreciate what you're wearing, or sorry, not even what you're wearing. I like what you're wearing, but more importantly is I appreciate what you stand for. I appreciate the way, you speak your mind. I appreciate, right? You can even say, I like you. And here's one. I'm going to push the boundaries, Steve, right? I love you, right? That is a profound type of admiration, right? Of course, you've got to keep boundaries in mind, and especially in the work setting, right? So let's move to the third A. The third A is appreciation, right? And this really is about recognizing the good qualities of somebody, right? This one takes it a little bit further. And what's really important about appreciation is it's profound, and it's important because we believe at Brivia that no great things can be achieved without the support of other people. And appreciation and encouragement is another form, right? Is a powerful form of recognition. Saying thank you for an effort, saying thank you for a contribution, thank you for your support, demonstrating appreciation with a gesture, right? So taking a little bit further with a gift or a favor or some sort of payback, right? Paying it forward. There are many things that you can do, right? So there's so many things. And Steve, what I think I want to go from that hashtag deep to the super simple is that, right? These small efforts that we can make, whether it's acknowledging, admiring, or appreciating at work, with the people that we care for, the people that we're responsible for, can have a profound effect, especially at this time where people are feeling lonely. And I see in the chat, it's recognized. We have a crisis of connection, right? So we've got to elevate belief and breathe life back into this important aspect. So Steve,
normally when sorry, I was on mute there.
What's amazing is usually when I talk about how profound things are and how simple they can be, you usually follow up with a question that many people ask.
Yeah. So, Steve, why do so many people minimize recognition?
Well, it's a really good question, Steve. It's probably one of the most common questions, and you can put it in the chat. You can see some great chats happening here. There's a lot of myths around praise or positive, elevating people. I think there's two really big ones. There's two really big reasons why I think we minimize it. There's lots more. I think there are two big ones. And I also think that there's a massive consequence that results of us minimizing this so much. So the first one, I think recognition has been minimized in the Western world with individualism, competitiveness, right? This idea that not only is it not valued, but in some cases, to be able to, a lot of people have this idea that if I appreciate you, Steve, or if I give positive recognition, it diminishes my value, right? And this is ridiculous because the work that we do and the research that I'm doing, it's the opposite, right? It's the opposite. The other reason I think why we minimize, and this is really important, we're going to get into this, and many people here can relate to this. Many of us minimize recognition because when we've been recognized or somebody has made an effort to recognize us, it's fallen short. It hasn't been meaningful. It hasn't been valuable. Even worse yet, and makes me sad, it makes my heart hurt, Steve, and everybody here, is that sometimes efforts at recognition have been experienced as disappointing or even negative, right? And so when we have those experiences, we minimize the belief that recognition is going to be helpful. Recognition is going to have a positive impact. But the reality is belief equals effort equals outcome. We talk about that all the time. We talk about if we stop believing that recognition is important, if we stop believing that it's going to have an impact, we stop doing it. We don't put in an effort, and the outcome is exactly what we're seeing. Lonely, disconnected, isolated people, not just in the world, but even at our work. Okay. So that's I think those are two of the reasons why I think we minimize, and the consequences of minimizing the importance of recognition, Steve.
Okay. Well, Steve, did you want to chat a little bit about currency and then bring someone on to have a chat about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot wait to interview someone that showed up here. So before we get into the interview, I'm going to give you two very simple ways of elevating, breathing belief back in to recognition. And here we go. Number one is elevate recognition by sharing the impact. It's so often, 1,000 times today, someone will say, thank you, Reagan. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for that. Thank you. This is great. And you never know. We take out the most important piece of the learning, of the experiences. I want you to know, thank you for covering my shift last night, because I was able to stay home with my son who hasn't been feeling well. And something that gave us an opportunity to connect. Right? There we go. That's how we elevate praise. We elevate praise with a raise by sharing the impact. And then the second one is share your own recognition currency. Here's the thing about, we work with people every day. Everybody has a different currency. What's a currency? Well, currency, you know what currency is in terms of money, right? If I try to go from one country to another country that doesn't accept that currency, and I try to use the currency there, I'm not going to get value. I'm not going to be able to buy anything. It's going to be worthless. The same is true for my efforts to recognize John or recognize Brenda on our team, right? Or recognize, Virgilio, who I want to send a shout out for doing such amazing artwork on our slides and our handouts. I just want to say that, right? Thank you, Virgilio, for making our stuff beautiful, because before you, it didn't look beautiful. So
okay.
Recognition. Yeah. So recognition currency, Steve, is what is our currency? What is our specific currency? What do we need? What behaviors or statements do we need that would land with us to be meaningful and fulfilling and give us that sense of value and that we matter?
Okay. No, that's huge. Steve, like, you took a big concept, you're making it more and more simple. Now I think it's a time to show us how to do this. So we have Reagan here.
All right.
Reagan, can you let me try speaking, make sure we can hear you.
Hi there.
Hey,
Perfect.
Reagan.
You're good.
Hello.
I feel like this is old time talk radio. Hey, Reagan, welcome. Awesome. And Reagan, I think before we get started, thank you so much for doing this, because this kind of demonstration is not possible in a lecture or any kind of webinar unless we actually do it. So I wanted to thank you for that, for joining us. I also wanted to say to everybody that's here, Steve is going to send not only the recording to this webinar as a follow-up, but we have a handout for how you can find your own recognition currency so that you can share it with other people. Reagan, thank you. Are you ready for a very brief interview, Reagan?
Sure.
Awesome. So we talked about acknowledgement, admiration, and appreciation. Which one of those three do you connect with? Just which one speaks to you the most?
It's a tough question.
You have to overthink it. Oh, they're all important? Okay.
Yeah, they're all important. And I think they all build on each other.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting because I work in the healthcare system within Manitoba, and acknowledgement is one of those things that I think is just the simplest of things that can be done every day. You don't even just within coworkers. You know, we've run into problems with issues of respect for workplace complaints, and you know, people don't talk to me. They don't even look at me. And acknowledgement is the simplest form of just a good morning. You don't have to be best friends with people you work with. Just say hi. It's huge. And I mean, I think that's the foundation of all of it. I think as leaders, we have to build on the admiration and the appreciation, but the acknowledgement is something that really cuts to what everybody can do.
Okay, cool. I love that you start. Well, thank you for your service in healthcare, and thank you for being at home in Manitoba. That's where, you know, I have several homes, but that is one where my heart lives. So thank you so much for that. So let's start with the acknowledgement then. So acknowledgement, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Reagan. When it comes to acknowledgement, what kind of behaviors for you, so this is your currency, what things come to mind for you around what would acknowledgement look like? So if I was working with you, what would I need to know to ensure that acknowledgements landed for you? Like, what are one or two things that you could let me know what your currency would be around acknowledgement?
So I think it's just as simple as a, you know, a good morning. You know, we jump, I find we're in our new world of post-COVID and everything is on Teams and virtual. We tend to jump into meetings and everybody goes. And I like that, you know, take 2 minutes out of the beginning of a meeting just to say, good morning, how's everybody doing? Did you have a good weekend? Whatever it might be. Something as simple as that, because I think we've lost so much of the personal connection with all of our remote work that's a simple way to be able to just make sure that people know that you're not just there to work, you're also people who are working.
Wow. Reagan, you should come by more often. That was awesome. Because one of the things I'm hearing you say is a couple of things, right? And it's amazing because we do suggest this in our work with people in healthcare because they get to business right away. They're so overwhelmed. But what you're saying is say good morning and take a moment for just to check in with each other. Like not even check in, but just to connect with each other. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Absolutely.
So I got another question for you. What difference does that make for you, Reagan? So for you personally, when somebody takes the time to say good morning and connect before business?
Well, I think it makes you feel valued as a person, not just as an employee.
Okay.
Awesome. We're people before we're employees, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. So it makes you feel valued as a human being, not just as an employee. Okay. So Reagan, I want to just, before I thank you again, I just want to say what I'm hearing. Here's the thing. If we work together tomorrow, right? I can say good morning to you. It doesn't take long at all if it's genuine, right? And the other thing I can do is make sure that I connect with you before I get to this monumental agenda that our organization has emailed us prior to the meeting, right? So thank you so much, Reagan. Do you have any questions or comments? That's as simple as it is. And I wanted to thank you. Anything to add or any questions or comments before you?
No, but I appreciate the simplicity of that, the AAA piece, because I think those are the kind of the key things. And I think it's something that I need to take back into my organization and start working on. I think some people do it very well. I think we need to teach people how to make sure that they're doing it consistently. So I appreciate the simplicity of that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Reagan. Thank you so much for joining us. And I wanted to just add on to that, Steve. I think we might have another interview if that's possible, but this is what's really cool. You know what helps? Yeah, and Reagan, thank you. And you know what helps me remember, like, because it's true, we're human. We get busy, we forget. Like I forget to used to thank my son to put his shoes away. I forget to thank my team members, right? And it's not that it's not important, but you know what helps me? When I hear Reagan say, you see me and I feel valued as a human being, that helps me remember, right? That helps me remember, right? Now that I know that, I'm going to do my best to ensure to say good morning to Reagan. And I'm going to do my best to ensure that I just connect before we correct or direct or whatever else we get to. Thank you, Reagan. Awesome. That's so great. Steve, I'm going to, is there anyone? Yeah. Is there anyone
Steve,
else?
actually, if someone else wants to come on, just ping me, send me a quick
Yeah,
direct message. Steve, we had some questions come in for you, though, so let's answer some of these.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get to the questions. If somebody wants to jump in on an interview, we can do that as well. What are the questions?
Okay, our first question from Tanya. Is it different in the construction area?
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, kind of. What a great question. So we do work in medicine and mining, manufacturing and construction. What we try to get at is especially so underground mining, construction, not uncommon. It's a great question. What we can't forget is that they're humans. So it comes back to the currency, right? So this is a really great question. Who was that again, Steve, that asked that question?
Sorry, you had me on mute. It was Tanya.
Oh, Tanya. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah. We sometimes do that. We'll assume like, a surgeon doesn't need appreciation, or the guy underground is too tough, or the guy in Australia is a bloke, right? That's what the term we use, a tough bloke. And it actually limits our ability to connect with them. But when we connect with, like, it's like what Reagan said. She's a human being, and we can't forget that. The guy underground, the woman surgeon, the they that works in manufacturing, they're humans first. And I love what Reagan said, we're humans first. And as humans, we require it, and it's about finding that currency. Sometimes it's, hey, atta boy, atta girl, atta they, way to go, high five, a handshake or a hug. Finding that currency, because I think what we need to know is that it's important. Full stop. Then how do we do it? How do we do it in a way that lands in a way that helps people feel that they matter, feel that they're seen, feel that they're important? As Reagan said, feel that she is human and that she's valued as a human, right? So we can find that currency. And that's, I think, the hardest part, but it's actually not that hard, right? And one of the things we do at Brivia is we should, all our courses are how to simplify this stuff and put it into the hands of leaders. Okay, thank you again. Great question.
Steve, actually, I'm just going to ask one quick follow-on to that question, and we have Anna ready to go for an interview.
Right on.
So just to clarify on that, the customer in construction believes they don't have time. So you told a story about that at the beginning, but how else do you address that issue with leaders?
When leaders say they don't have time, I say, tell me about that. Help me understand what you mean when you say time, right? Because a lot of time, it's not about time. Like it's, well, it's, I don't have time in between meetings, or sometimes it's about time, but time is a really good excuse. Now, I'm not saying they're excusing it, right? But we work with a lot of high-level leaders who the initial instinct response is protective. It's dismissive, defensive, because we feel bad because on some level we know we should do it, right? So what we try to do is find out what is the meaning behind not doing it. What is really the meaning in hesitating or the reluctance? And once you find that place, you arrive at the place, you can leave that place with simple, practical, and actionable strategies that mean something. Because this is the thing, if we don't make it meaningful, we don't move to it, right? So I want to know from Reagan, I want to know from Anna right away, I want to know from Tanya, and I want to know from Derek, what is their currency, so that when I make my efforts, because this is also sad, so many things that make me sad, Steve. I make efforts every day to thank people, and if it doesn't land, it's just that effort is not recognized, it's not validated, and it's wasted, right? So how can we do this in a way that makes it meaningful for the people that we're working with? Awesome, thanks.
That's great. All right, Steve, we have Anna here. I'm just going to unmute her. And Anna, welcome to Steve de Groot Talk Radio. You're on there.
Hey, Anna, welcome.
Hi,
thank you for good morning. Thanks for joining us. How are you today?
I'm really good, thanks.
Okay, awesome. And so here we go, Anna. It's we've been talking about, acknowledging, admiring, and appreciation. Which one of the three do you connect with? Like, just connects with you right away?
I'm similar to Reagan. I also work in healthcare.
Okay.
And with my team, acknowledgement is really important as part of the recognition. But one of the things that I've started doing with my onboarding process is actually asking the people on my team that I work with, how do you like to be recognized?
Oh,
and
nice.
It's really interesting to see, like I've had one person say, like, don't ever recognize me in a room full of people.
Wow, there you go, right.
So that would land very flat if I did that. So I found a lot of what you've said really resonates because some people just like to be recognized differently than others. And, as a leader, you might do something and say something, and it may just not land because that's not valuable to the person receiving it.
Oh, yeah. Sad for everybody, right? It's just terrible. It's like, especially in healthcare. So Anna, thank you too. Thank you as well. healthcare is needed and needs people like you. And I love what you've already started moving. You've already talked about the currency. And the good news is we have this awesome handout that's super simple that you can just send out to your team and say, hey, this will take you 5 minutes, send it back, right? It's on the 3 different types of acknowledgement, appreciation, and admiration. So I have a quick question for you, Anna.
Yes.
You gave me a good idea about what other people might want. Let's talk about you. In the context of acknowledgement, if I was to work with you as a colleague, what kind of behaviors or statements would ensure, if I did them, would ensure to you that you felt acknowledged?
I mean, a thank you goes a long way, but for me, it needs to be genuine. I need to feel it's genuine and not, oh, thanks. Like, someone always saying it all the time, and it just seems to be, if you're having that connection and it's just really genuine, a thanks for doing that, or thanks for stepping up, like often just for stuff that you normally wouldn't do, maybe not part of regular job.
Okay. So something a little bit extra, like we heard someone the other day said, not for unloading the dishwasher, or not for entering the room, but something a little bit more significant that you wouldn't normally be thanked for. So I have another follow-up question. How will I know I'm being genuine? How will I know that? What can I do or say? And I think something significant, but is there anything else that would help me make it more genuine for you, Anna, that would land better?
Oh, that's a good question.
Can I make a suggestion? Because it's building on what you'd said, and I'm trying to learn, because this would be great if we work together, because I'd love to learn more about you. Is if I was specific about what it was that had the impact, like that, thank you for stepping up in that situation, and this was the impact, would that make it more genuine because you would know that would ring more truth to it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. I make note to Anna. So Anna, here it comes. What difference would that make for you if I acknowledged you in a way that made you feel that I was grateful and that it was genuine? How would that be helpful for you?
I think being in the industry we're in, where we're doing a lot of service to others, if I know I've made an impact and it has helped you in some way, that makes me feel really good about what I did.
Oh my gosh, right.
And I'll probably go out of my way to do it again.
Oh my goodness, right, yeah.
Build that relationship and you build that rapport. But I think people in healthcare, generally speaking, are very service-oriented people. So they know that they're helping others, or it helped you in some way, that makes me feel really good.
Wow. Anna, this was so awesome. Thanks for gracing us with your presence. Any questions or comments before we move on to a couple more things in the presentation? That was amazing, but do you have anything else to add?
I want to thank you for this, because I think anything that helps me learn and be a better leader helps my team do what they love to do. And so I thank you so much for the opportunity. And this is just a nice break during my workday to do some learning. I often don't have time for this, so I'm really glad we jumped in today.
Well, we're glad you stopped by too, and thank you so much. And I hope some of your colleagues are here. I hope some of your bosses are here, because I think one of the things I want to emphasize, I want to take this explanation into an exclamation. If you were listening to what Anna said, not only does it make her feel good and valued and it's meaningful, she's willing to do more. She's willing to step up in a time where we're talking about engagement and performance and resilience. And one of the things that the book that I'm, been working on for 25 years states is that recognition, as simple as it is key to elevating our human potential, our ability to perform. And more importantly, in a time when we're not doing well, it strengthens our individual and collective resilience. So Anna and Reagan, that was incredible. People that were here, I want to thank you both, Reagan and Anna, because we could not have done that. I can't no matter how great we lecture, how much information we have, how much research, we cannot add that. And I want to just get to this really quickly, is that what can we do, right? What can we do? Know that we need recognition. The next time you're about to minimize it, we do this. Here's one of the things I always get sad when we get close to the end of a presentation, Steve, right? I know we got about 5 minutes left and more questions. But when I think about Mother Teresa's quote, that we're starving for love and appreciation, and how often we minimize it, right? We do this all the time, especially people in healthcare, right? We're really good at this. Even when we're hungry, Can I get you something to eat? No, thanks, I'm good. We could be starving. No, thanks, I'm good. Right? Thank goodness we can go somewhere else and get food. But we sometimes sacrifice our own well-being because we minimize it for many different reasons. We're not going to get into that, right? We say, no, thank you. I don't need that when we need it. Now, what about recognition? When we aren't getting it here and we don't have another place to go, we stay starving. Right? And that's my case, the case to know that we need recognition. Then we move from there, know your currency, get to know your currency. I love the interviews because we did some interviews yesterday with two of the smartest people I know, right? And they're like, wow, I never really thought about this before. We're like, oh my gosh, all last night, I'm like, do I even know my own currency? Have I shared, right? People are trying and it's not landing. That's not their fault. Know your own currency. And if you're a leader, especially know your people's currency, right? And just recognize others more. You can do it on your phone right now. I can't see you, so you can text people, say thank you so much, right? Sometimes I forget of thanking people. I will go for a drive and I will use my voice to text, and I'll get an email back or a voice text back saying, hey Steve, are you on a long drive? I heard from you today, right? And I thank as many people as I can. All right, Steve.
All right, Steve.
I'm going to bring it down a little bit in terms of my energy, but yeah, what do you? Let's do this now. Oh, Steve.
Let's
do this. Let's get back this part. To scale. For those of you who are here in the beginning, I'm going to ask you the same question based on what we talked about on a scale of 1 to 10. How important is recognition for you at work? Has there been a shift today? Has there been a shift in your feeling or thinking about recognition, with 1 being not important at all and 10 being important? I'd love to see you put it in the chat. Where are you at right now with respect to what we've talked about today? So I see people putting it in the chat. I'd love to see as many numbers as possible, right? And again, it's one of those things where, you know, we've been taught to minimize it. We minimize it ourselves for different reasons. And I think what I want to really emphasize here is that whether we believe it or not, as human beings, we require connection. We're always serving. So when we return, it's very powerful. Right? And I don't have to tell you about the cold shoulder. I don't have to tell you about the experience you have when someone you care about does not call you back or does not return your serve, or when you get ghosted, right? That experience that you have is embedded deep within the architecture of your being, which is why it hurts so much. And the opposite is true. When we serve and when we return, whether that's at life or in work, it has a powerful and profound effect on our potential, our performance, and our individual and collective resilience. Steve.
Yeah, well, Steve, in the chat, seeing lots of 8s, 9s, lots of 10s. So I think people are having this. And Steve, not so many questions, but some comments. Just kind of, I want to highlight these two, just what people are learning, taking away. You can add some color. You know, a good leader will always figure out what their staff wants as recognition. I thought that was a great point. But as Corey also mentioned, like, make sure you do it right. If it doesn't land, it actually makes people feel worse. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's we've talked about, the last webinar was intent impact gap, right? So that's a great one, right? Even when we get someone's currency, we got to check in, are we doing it right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, I'll cycle back with Anna and Reagan, you know, every couple of weeks, and I know it's strange, right? People, it's sometimes strange for people to ask each other, like, how are we doing? How's the trust in our relationship? How am I doing? Am I recognizing you in a way that's landing, right? And we got to get over, you know, we've talked about this, getting over our discomfort. And that's why at Brivia, we love to give simple, practical tools to make the awkward less awkward. And one of the things we hear often is, it's not natural. It's not natural. It is so natural. It's just uncomfortable. And we need to get to better with our comfort. Steve.
Yeah. So another one from Shanda, she says, many of their volunteers say they don't want recognition, and others think they fall short. So that's probably just an example of why you need to individualize this with your team as much as you can.
Yeah. And I think it's a great comment. It's something for all of us to think about, that knee-jerk reaction to minimize recognition or appreciation or admiration. We gotta ask ourselves, what do I know about this from my perspective? Right? What do I know about this? You know, and I think we've got to tune into, because I'm at the point now, working with enough human beings, doing enough research, working with super amazing people, that there's no argument anymore. We need a type of recognition. We need to figure out what is the currency, because every human being requires to feel valued, to feel like they matter, and to feel that they're safe in their relationships and in the environments they spend the most time in. And as you heard Anna say, and you heard Reagan say, the impact is monumental, right? The impact, and I want to also put a little footnote here and a caution. Don't recognize people to get more out of them. And I need to say this very specifically. We see all over I'm not going to name the platforms, but if you want better performance out of your people, show you care. No. Show you care for the sake of showing that you care. And one of my favorite lines from the late Gord Downey and the Tragically Hip is from Boots to Hearts is, even babies raised by wolves know when they're being used. And I think we've got to make the shift from recognizing and honoring people just to get performance. Because the good news is when we honor them for being human beings, and when we value them and let them know that they matter for the sake of them mattering, for being worthwhile as a human, they actually do more.
Mm-hmm.
So we drop the first, we'll get the second, right?
Yeah. Steve, I think Jeff just summed up what you said perfectly here. Show you care for the sake of showing that you care. Relational, not transactional, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. I know Jeff. I know he knows what he's talking about. That guy
Steve,
knows what he's talking about.
Anything you want to add other as we wrap up today's webinar?
Thank you, everybody. We're trying our best. Even a guy, me, who's been teaching this for over 20 years, forgets and needs a reminder to say thank you, to show appreciation, to show admiration. I want you to know that this is, I think, a really good elixir to the loneliness and the connection crisis that we're all experiencing, and we got to get over this and know that recognition in its various forms is important. I want to thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you again to the people in every industry, but especially I'm going to shout out to health. It's tough. It's tougher than ever. Thank you for you and all you do. And I can't wait to see you again. And Steve, back to you.
All right. Well, thanks, Steve. And folks, that wraps up today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Reagan, Anna, thanks for coming off mute and joining Steve in that conversation that added so much value to what we talked about today. So folks, again, a link to the webinar as well as to the currency handout will be sent to you tomorrow in a follow-up email. We want to keep this conversation going, so please reach out to Steve on LinkedIn. You can also send an email to contact@briviaconsulting.com. Our next webinar and final webinar of 2023 is going to be happening on December 21. You can mark that in your calendars now. It's going to be something inspiring, practical, useful for the holidays, just like our other December webinars have been. So we will get information over to you on that in the next couple of weeks. And thank you all again for joining us here today. We'd also like to wish a early happy Thanksgiving to all of you joining us from the US. Enjoy the rest of your November, and we will see you next month.